So the other night, my friend Kenny and I were having one of those 1 a.m. FaceTime discussions. And I don't know how we landed on it, but we started talking about race and attraction. And my friend is an Asian American male, so he has a very unique perspective on dating in relation to racial preferences. Basically, he was talking about how it kind of sucks that Asian men are generally perceived as unattractive, and statistically they do tend to have the worst luck on dating apps. And I admitted that I'd never been romantically or sexually involved with an Asian American person before. The men that I tend to involve myself with tend to lean towards white and Hispanic. And he said, well, that makes a lot of sense considering you grew up in America and you have been exposed to Eurocentric beauty standards. And this kind of led into the question of why are we attracted to certain people, and is there a way that we could change who we're attracted to? Because we all notice certain patterns, right? I've personally noticed recently while I've been riding the subways in New York City that there are a lot of Asian women and white male couples. And maybe this has something to do with the fact that maybe I just notice those types of couples more because I am an Asian female that is attracted to white males. But statistically speaking, in terms of interracial couples, that's not an uncommon combination. Before I continue, I would just like to preface that the way that Asian men and women are perceived have a historical context that I'm not personally going to get into in this video, but the way that history has evolved, Asian men are emasculated and Asian women are fetishized. Asian men are perceived as awkward, and statistically they tend to be shorter, and of course there's the running joke that they have small penises, and so they're generally regarded as undesirable and unattractive. Obviously, this isn't to say that all Asian men are unattractive, it's just that when they are considered attractive, it tends to be a very specific type. So for example, they look like a K-pop idol, or they're over 6 foot, jacked, and have bleached hair. Attraction feels like something that's out of our control. It feels like something that's inexplicable and so inherent within us that it almost feels like some sort of biological force. And I think a lot of people would like to believe that in regards to their attraction, they are open-minded and not discriminatory. Like, I had a friend that accused me of having strongly Anglo-Saxon racial preferences when it comes to dating, and I immediately felt the need to defend myself. I was like, no, that can't be true. The last 2 men I dated were Hispanic. And he was like, well, yes, they were Hispanic, but they were white passing Hispanics. They weren't dark-skinned Hispanics. And I was like, and I like to think that when I am on dating apps that I give everyone a fair shake. Like, when you look at someone's profile, most of the time it's pretty easy to figure out what race they are. It might even be like one of the first things you notice. I try not to think about it too much. I just try to think, does this person catch my eye? Is there something appealing about them? Do I find them attractive? But honestly, I can't say I've swiped right on a lot of Asian men, and I never really thought much of it. I was just like, I tend to be attracted to white and Hispanic people, and that doesn't mean I'm only attracted to white and Hispanic people, because I have been attracted to other kinds of people. It's just that if you look at my history of people that I tend to be romantically and sexually involved with, most of them tend to be white, or at least white adjacent. And I realize that now, because I grew up in America and I grew up in a culture that is very systemically racist, that internalized racism likely plays into my dating preferences. And I don't think up until very, very recently that this was something that was conscious to me, and I don't think it's conscious to most people. And then there's a question of like, what is wrong with dating white people or having a preference for dating white people? I mean, if you live in America, the majority of the population is white, so statistically, it's not all that crazy that the majority of the people you would date would be white, just because that's the pool of people that is accessible to you. But the funny thing is that most people end up with somebody of their own race. So if that's the case, why do I see so many Asian female, white male couples? Why am I somebody who struggles to feel attracted to somebody of my own race when that is typically something that is not a problem for most people? So let's get into why I want to challenge my attraction in the first place. While doing research for this video, I was listening to this episode from Invisibilia. I will link it right here. I had a hard time finding material as to why we are attracted to certain people and how we can change that attraction, and if it's possible to change that attraction. And this podcast had the most relevant information that I could find. A lot of the information that I'm saying I'm pulling from this episode. I think there's something unsettling about realizing that you're unconsciously discriminating against an entire group of people, even if it's just in a romantic context, which seems like the least important context to analyze discrimination in. But I do think it's something that's important to be aware of and to think about. Because of these racial biases, there is a really dark side to dating when you're an Asian man. Online dating can be really brutal, but when you belong to a race of people that is considered unattractive and undesirable, sometimes you'll message people and they'll be like, what the fuck, why are you talking to me? And obviously I'm not an Asian man, so this is not from firsthand experience, but I know that as somebody who has been on dating apps, it can be really scary and tough to put yourself out there and initiate conversations with people. And when things like that happen, it makes something that's already really toxic even more toxic, which is just really unfortunate and really disgusting that some people have those type of experiences when they're just trying to find a connection. Another reason why I personally want to challenge my attraction is that I'm a fan of not reinforcing stereotypes. Growing up, I was the only Asian cheerleader, and I was the only girl in this specific department of all of the school plays that we put on. I thought that being a minority woman in groups that didn't typically have minority women was something that made me special. Asian women having a thing for white men has become a stereotype. And it has a name, it's called white fever, just in the same way that white men can have yellow fever. And this stereotype, in a weird way, makes me feel, I don't want to say lesser about myself because I'm attracted to white men, but it makes me wish I wasn't attracted to white men, because nobody wants to be the person that reinforces the stereotype. You want to be the one that challenges the stereotype, because fuck stereotypes. But first, is it even possible to change who you're attracted to? Because if you think about it, attraction is programmed by culture. An observation that both me and my friend that I was talking to about this have made is that Asian women who grew up in Asia tend to be with Asian men, but if you grew up here in the States, then you tend to be with white men. And why is that? It's because there's different beauty standards in different countries, and therefore, depending on where you are fed different information. So I have internalized Eurocentric beauty standards. And not only has that affected me in my dating life, but it really impacted my self-esteem growing up. I didn't grow up thinking that I was that attractive. It wasn't really until I became an adult and I really grew up. I had experiences that led me to believe that I was attractive, not because I believed I was attractive, but other people showed me that they believed I was attractive, that I came to the conclusion that yes, I am attractive. So if where you grew up or what cultures you're exposed to determine what beauty standards you have drilled into your brain, then that means that attraction is a learned behavior. So because it's a learned thing, we should be able to change it, right? If we can learn something, then we can unlearn something, right? So there's not really any direct studies on whether we can change our racial preferences. And basically all the information I'm about to say about this is from the Invisibilia podcast that I mentioned earlier, but this is what I learned. Our early sexual experiences have a lot to do with the kind of people that we continue to have sexual experiences with. Kind of your very first time having a sexual experience, you're going to have all the love chemicals, right? Oxytocin, dopamine, you're gonna feel bonding, desire, pleasure. Those feelings are going to be personified by whoever you have those experiences with. And so you think, well, I can't change my early sexual experiences. And maybe you're even a little mad to hear about this because maybe you didn't have the best early sexual experiences. But the thing you could take away from this is that you can probably have different and new preferences by exposing yourself romantically to different kinds of people, which is weird to think about because A, it means you're going on dates or hooking up with people that you aren't necessarily initially attracted to, which doesn't feel right, or at least to me, it wouldn't really feel right. In a romantic context, you're also consciously targeting people that you're unconsciously discriminating against, which also doesn't feel great. Like, hey, my name's Grace. I'm only going on a date with you because I'm trying to change my racial preferences. If you are brave enough to actually undertake this journey of trying to overcome your inherent biases, probably don't mention what exactly it is you're trying to achieve. But I know that most people will watch this and just be like, oh, that's cool, or that's interesting to think about, but they probably won't actively try to take steps to challenge the kind of people that they're attracted to, because that's uncomfortable. And most people do not want to do things that are uncomfortable. Why would they want to do something that's uncomfortable? There is so much discomfort in life as it is inherently already. But I think at the very least, it's good to be aware of the inherent biases that exist within us, and it's good to be aware of how these biases affect our worldview and affect how we treat other people. If you are brave enough to actually try to challenge your attraction, good for you. It's not an easy thing to do, but if it is something that you're actually able to achieve, it's like unlocking a new superpower. And just in undertaking this journey, you're gonna expose yourself to so many new experiences, so many new cultures and worldviews, and that's something that's really cool and makes you a more well-rounded human being. Another question you might be asking, is it wrong to not want to date inside of my race or outside of my race because of personal reasons? Like, if you are a minority or a minority woman in this culture, that is a very specific experience you're having. And if you decide to date a straight white man, they are not going to understand that experience that you're having. You can talk to them about it, you can educate them, you can recall your own experiences about it, but they will never have the first-hand account of what that's like. And I can understand a lot of people who are minorities just being like, I don't want to deal with that. I just want to be with someone who just gets it. When I am angry or frustrated about something that's happened, I just want to be able to tell my partner about it and not have to worry about that extra layer of explanation that they might need if they were a different kind of person. And obviously in a lot of cultures, it is desirable to want to marry someone who is of the same culture or of the same race or is also from the same place. And to an extent that almost kind of makes sense. It's almost like there is an undeniable bond and understanding that already exists. But I also really resonate with the flip side of the coin. I think it's really cool when you date someone of a different culture and you really get to learn about them. And I think it's cool when they speak a different language and eat a different kind of food and have different customs. Because in being romantically involved with this partner, now you get to be a part of that. And having a variety of experiences and being exposed to different cultures, at least to me, is something that's very important and makes me feel more fulfilled. But that isn't to say that there would probably also be a lot of perks if I dated someone that was Chinese American. I think we would really understand each other in a lot of ways. I don't know exactly what I am going to take away from all of this information that I just threw at you. Now that I'm aware of it, I think it is something that I will try to take into my romantic life. And dating isn't something that's super high on my priority list right now. I'm not actively on dating apps and I'm not really looking for anything, but in the future, I would like to try to see people that aren't the kind of people that I would usually see. And I'm interested and curious to see how that goes. In the meantime, please let me know your thoughts down below. I really wanted to make this video because A, it's fascinating to me, and B, I don't think it's something that most people think about. The only reason why I'm aware of this phenomenon is because I talked to a friend who is so acutely aware of these biases because he is an Asian American man who's been putting himself out there and he's been on all the apps. But as someone who is on the other side of the equation and who is in a way a part of this problem, it is something that I wanted to challenge and it is something that I wanted to bring to light. And so, yeah, that's why this video exists. My name is Grace. Thank you for watching and I will see you again very soon.